I went and talked to JR. He pulled out his portfolio, and I'm looking. I'm like, hey, boy, this dude's stuff better than mine. I'm like, but I had to keep it professional. I'm like, yeah, I see what you did here, but I probably need to do this and that.
Yeah, you can improve. You can
Yeah,
improve here, here, here.
like, my kid. And like, which comic you do? Don't worry about what comic I do.
Hey guys, this is White Manga here with my crew, homies, Saturday AM in the Saturday FM network, making manga podcast, creator of Apple Black here, writer and illustrator, and the co-founder of Saturday AM. You guys can do the rest.
My name is Jay. Jay Oden. I am the creator of Hammer. This is Volume 5. It came out earlier this year. I'm also the artist on the Rick and Morty manga with Oni Press.
I'm Raymond Brown, creator of the comic Bully Eater, also a co-founder of Saturday AM. Glad to be up in here.
Yeah. If y'all remember last time, we were talking about self-publishing versus traditional publishing, what the differences are, and where things overlap. Self-publishing is, as it sounds, you're doing everything pretty much by yourself. And just here, we're talking about what it was like doing some traditional publishing and how that differs and what we had to deal with. Briefly, we don't want to go into too much detail about it, but we have our distribution partner Quarto and the Rockport, and they've assisted us doing distribution. We're partners doing distribution for all our books, and without going into too much detail about how that came about to be, but essentially it was they reached out to us for one thing, and then the opportunity came out to be once passed on to at the time we had Carlos, if you remember Carlos.
Yeah, Carlos, yeah, man.
Yeah, Carlos is awesome. Shout out to Carlos. He does I'll find a way to put his link to what he does now. He deals with dogs and dog training. So shout out to Carlos.
Training.
But
now, yeah.
What do you say?
He's like the dog whisperer now, literally.
Yeah. He's the dog whisperer. So shout out Carlos. He was fun, great to work with. I like working with Carlos when he was with us. I sent the email to Carlos and Fred to kind of take it from what it was. It was going to be one thing, and then the opportunity for it to be what it is today came out to be what it is today. Still, regardless, it still wouldn't have worked out if Saturday AM wasn't what it was. If all the people behind Saturday AM and staff and all the artists weren't as consistent and dedicated and professional in what they did and what they were doing. If those things weren't in place, the deal wouldn't be what it is today, because our distribution deal is very unique and different from most other deals. So it isn't like a one-to-one where we can say, hey, if you do this, you're going to get it. But there are certain things that if you have with you, if they're part of your repertoire, they're going to be in your favor, right? There's that consistency, the hard work, and then obviously you have to make good stuff. The art, the story, all that needs to be definitely all that needs to be on point. And then you have people who have your back from like I said, the staff and Fred leading the company and all of that. All those things need to be in play. Obviously, you leading yourself, or if you have a book agent or something like that, those kind of play a role. But without jumping into it, what are you guys' thoughts on our book deal and how things have gone so far? Before we kind of break some of the inside stories.
I mean, I think we're gonna sound like a broken record on a lot of these videos because the consistency is always going to be your best weapon, because like whenever opportunity comes, or if something pops off, if you got that body of work, it's a much more convincing argument than, hey, I'm brand new, all of a sudden I have an opportunity to get published with XYZ company, but oh, guess what, I only have a chapter and a half done. You know what I mean? Versus, I've been working at it this whole time. I've got enough to fill a volume. I got enough to fill 2 volumes, whatever it may be. The consistency is always going to be your greatest weapon. It might even trump. Guys might disagree. Consistency might even trump art. You know what I mean? Yeah, Homestuck is a good example of that. Remember Homestuck?
Yeah. I think Consistency, I think not consistency alone. No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say so. But consistency, if you have some, let's say consistency and the story is really good,
yeah.
like if it's just you can see be consistently bad.
Yeah, you can, but I mean,
You
that's
can
crazy.
be consistently bad.
Bad is subjective, though, man. Like I've seen
It,
crazy things happen, man. Like
yeah, bad is subjective, but if enough people objectively think your stuff is bad and you're consistent at it,
It
but then
won't.
you got a fan
It won't.
base. Look at that. Look at that. Then
what fan base? If what
you
fan
got
base?
a fan base of people that don't like your crap. People in
That's
there,
is that a fan base?
yeah, people out there are vocal about like not liking stuff, dude. Like you know what I mean? Like there's whole discourse about stuff that people don't like. You know what I mean?
I guess I don't know if that's the type of fan base you want because then they're not buying anything. I don't even know,
Just
but
be safe
My
and be consistently be consistent with good stuff. With good with
yes,
yeah.
yeah, good
Just
stuff.
be safe.
The
Don't
good stuff doesn't have to be art, but there has to be. You're consistent when we say consistent,
something.
consistently good at something.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
safe. That's safe.
yeah, yeah. Well, what about you, Jay? What do you think about the deal so
um, I think in terms of what to take away from the deal and what I would try to advise people is to really focus on what you want to accomplish and know exactly when your deadline is, because that's like one of the biggest things. For me, throughout this entire time, I had a lot of work already done. I had a vision for like the story, and that vision has changed so many different times. But I mean, because there was like hardcore deadlines, it really like put a noose around like what exactly I could do and what I had time to change and add or take away. If I could go back and do it, I would probably do it a little bit differently. But I really think that knowing exactly how much time you have and when it needs to be done really can make or break exactly how much effort you put into the project. Obviously, put as much effort as possible, but I mean, I really think that that can dictate exactly how it all comes out. So.
yeah, I think
Actually, I got on that point. I got a question kind of for both of you guys. So, do you think you can create? Do you think you can give your own self a deadline and stick to it, or do you think you need somebody else? You need at least another entity, person, or somebody like that to keep you honest.
Put myself in deadlines constantly. I mean, I think it just kind of depends on what I actually have going on because I have a short story that I've been wanting to do and get done for like the last few months. But I'm also working on the Rick and Morty Volume 2, and that deadline is like right around the corner. And like, I have so many pages still to do. So because of that, like obviously, that takes more priority. But most of the time I can put myself on a deadline and I'll get it done. Even for this Rick and Morty stuff, like I'm like right now because the deadline is so close, my goal is to finish up roughly 10 to 15 pages a week, and I've been consistently making it. It's been difficult and it's been a lot of long nights, but at the same time, like I mean, it's still something that I have enough agency to take control over. So
But even that's kind of like that's still like only that's still Rick and Morty kind of though. Like
true.
I'm saying like raw. Like okay, I got a comic project I want to do, and I want to have it done by like 3 months from now. But nobody. I don't have a boss telling me what to do. I'm not doing it for any money. I'm just literally going to do it
no
because like
no no fan no fan base waiting for it. Nothing.
yeah, yeah. Like that's what I mean. Like do you think
Yeah,
just having set a deadline to yourself is enough, or do you need to get somebody else involved and say, hey, even if it's a friend, say, hey, hold me to making sure I get this thing done in 3 months. I'm asking. I don't know.
I think it's difficult because there's always technically I can make the argument that there's always going to be something, right? Like there's always going to be something holding you accountable, right? Because that's why I asked, like, oh, is it well? What if there's like a fan base waiting for it? It's still all you, but like there is somebody there because let's say
Sure.
you were making a comic and nobody knows about it, and you just want to make a comic, and but you want to put it out, right? You want to put it out at some point, and maybe you want to put it out because of something happening, right? Or I mean, if it's something that you just want to put out, then yes, you can give yourself a deadline. It's just going to be a lax deadline if it doesn't need to meet maybe a different deadline, or you want to make it before Christmas. Like technically, you can give yourself a deadline. It's just that if there absolutely no external forces, or the external forces are very limited, then you're just going to give yourself a lax deadline, and it's still a deadline. You know?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, like you said, a lax deadline is not necessarily like imperative that you finish it, but it is definitely still a priority. Personally, I've never really had too much difficulty setting my own deadlines and meeting them. Uh, even before Saturday AM, I was trying to do stuff with webtoons, and like it was a goal of mine to have like a chapter out every week. So I was like ahead of schedule. I had a lot of chapters done, but like I was still working on the end of like the comic while I was doing that. So like it was, putting myself on like a schedule, and I don't know, like it really just kind of depends on your work ethic. So
Yeah, it depends because even that with webtoon, right? You kind of still want to put it on webtoon, and maybe subconsciously you're thinking, oh, I have to put it during this window because this is when it's easier to pop on. What you might not be saying that out loud, but you might be having those kinds of thoughts, and those are still external forces. But I think Raymond, you're asking is, can you get? I think a more specific one is, can you give yourself a chaotic deadline for no reason, no external force?
Can you order yourself?
Nobody is asking you to beat yourself over the head, but can you beat yourself over the head for, I don't know, a week and do it? Technically, look, technically, I could say I say the answer is yes, but that's a super rare situation. It's
Mhm.
it's just super rare. I think if there isn't urgency there, then there's no reason to, because if there's no reason to, the deadline is just going to end up being lax. But I think if you put in your brain like, oh, I want to do this, then basically holding yourself accountable fully, it's definitely possible. There's people that do it. Might maybe there are all kinds of examples that may not be necessarily art or creating comics, but just other things in life. You know what I mean? And so I would say it's possible. It's just not
well, I
common.
mean, I think this kind of leads into the next subjects. Depending on whether or not you have plans for whatever you're drawing or whatever you're creating. Like, let's say that you were a musician and you're like, I need to finish this up because I am about to go to this concert and I want to give my CD to somebody as like an EP. Like, hey, listen to me. So, I mean, as a comic book artist, there might be a convention that's coming up. Maybe you have Artist Alley and you want to like, actually have something that you could sell or give to somebody.
That's the external force.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, there's always going to be something. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's lax, because it's like maybe a year away. I mean, you have
Yeah,
time
yeah,
to
yeah.
do it and all that.
You can even miss it. You can miss it. Be like, oh, okay, I'll go do it in the next year.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I feel like it really is all about work ethic. But like in terms of what I was getting at with the next subjects, this is like I'm talking about like unsolicited and solicited, type of comics and stuff. And this is in regards to whenever you get self published. Like a solicited work is when a company asks you to create something. Like they're like, hey, we really like you. We really want you to create this particular book, or we have somebody that wrote the script and we would love to see if you would be able to draw it, or maybe you're the writer and they want you to write something in that regard. So that's usually what a solicited work is. But an unsolicited work is when you yourself are going out there basically shopping for a publisher, saying, hey, I have this work, can you like put this out for me, or would you be willing to publish this and all that other stuff. So I mean, for instance, when I was drawing Chicken Fight, so a really long time ago, I was doing that on my own just to like have fun, and I was self-publishing it, and I was on a deadline for myself, pretty much finishing up. I don't think I was doing a chapter a week, but it was like really close. I was doing a lot of pages throughout every single month because I didn't have a job at the time. It was a great time. I loved that. I wish I could go back in time. It was great. But uh when I shipped it out to a few companies, I didn't know what was really going to happen, and it was completely unsolicited. Luckily, somebody got back to me, and that's how it got with Antarctic Press. But yeah, I really think that also can come into a factor as well. Like if you're like, hey, I'm about to go to this convention and I know this one company is going to be there, I need to have something done, or maybe I have to have several things done. Like, that could also set you on several different deadlines. Like I need to finish this up. So just something to, keep in mind.
Yeah, I know, and this would apply to if you're just a writer as well. If you just if you just write, some of this kind of overlaps. Except there are times where, especially as a writer, but even as an artist, you can, for some publishers, you can find an agent. But again, an agent wouldn't necessarily accept you if you don't have stuff. So even throughout this whole process, you should keep creating, keep improving, keep
Definitely.
creating bodies of work where strong portfolios, where people can see what you can do as a writer, artist, whatever the case may be. Sometimes, even if it's just as a writer, you could be put on projects where you're just the artist for it. And then there is a writer handling it, and maybe you're on a graphic novel project for some major publisher. So getting an agent kind of helps, because a lot of agents, maybe they already have strong networking, and they can open doors a little bit quicker. If you don't have an agent, especially with the whole manga artist era, it's what's more common is you're go on website looking for contests, submissions, and all those kinds of things that can help get you through the door. With Saturday AM, obviously we have Summer of Manga, we have March Art Madness, and these are things that can help pull you into our network where we're aware of you. And maybe if we think of stuff, we could reach out to you, or if you pitch stuff to us, especially through Summer of Manga, we can work from there. And then based off of the experience with you, other things could happen. What happens is not going to be the same for everybody, but there have been cases where we have Zafe, who went through Summer of Manga, and now Orsha is published worldwide. That is through the Saturday AM network, right? Where I think he even did March Up Madness at one time, and then he did Summer of Manga. Then he created something from Summer of Manga, which was not Orsha, by the way. But and then later, just knowing him and him being part of our network, Orsha was born, and then we did that. And even though Orsha had several iterations of it, but now we have the book version that's out. So that's someone who has gone through the Saturday AM funnel, the Saturday AM wormhole, to eventually now be traditionally published manga artist. Now, I'm not sure. I think Orsha just recently came out, so I don't think it's been nominated for any awards yet, but there have been other people who have, and he's gotten great reviews as well. And then we had Fred and Jeffrey. Is there one more person?
JR with Underground.
Yeah, JR. And JR.
I think
JR
as well, right? But he was
Tony Dawkins. Tony Dawkins too. And then JR is one that he even showed us a portfolio for us. So I guess you could say that's how he got into the network. So there's going to portfolio review stuff at cons. That's another way to get discovered, and maybe you can get into traditional publishing, but maybe in the more Western Marvel, DC, kind of whatever, and going through that funnel. But JR, same thing, right? But I don't think JR went through Summer of Manga or March Art Madness, but he still shared his stuff, right? And that's how he got in with us. And then there isn't one way to make it, right? It's just sometimes there are some defaults, but there is always wiggle room here and there. And now JR has an award-winning manga published by us, worldwide, distributed by Quarto, and was the only American published manga to get an award in the, what's it called, the Japanese manga?
Japanese
International Manga Awards, Japan. Some look, it's like the Oscar. It's like the, what do you say?
It was a Japanese award. That's
it was a Japan. It was recognized by Japan. That's all you need to know. Yeah, it's the bronze award. It was the only American one to do it this I believe this time. That shout out to JR for putting in the work. The artwork is phenomenal. If you like Baki, if you like Vagabond, you probably would like it. JR also is a black belt. He's a second degree black belt. So you get in the mind of somebody who can really hurt you. It's just funny because JR is the nicest guy. It's he's just a nice guy.
Yeah.
But he can break you.
Get beat up by him, and you go to tell your boys which one was it? It's that guy over there, and he's over there. Hey, man.
But
that dude over there.
Yeah, that one, the one smiling. Yeah, him. So JR, Yeah.
I reviewed. I always tell the story, but I'm the one that like gave him the portfolio review for JR years ago, and I remember looking at his stuff, and I'm like, well, first Fred was supposed to do it. Like, we had an agreement that I was just going to like do all the like manual stuff at the table. This was at I think it was at New York, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was at
It had to be New York. I think it's
DC.
Anime NYC.
Yeah,
Anime NYC. Yeah.
yeah, and we were we were setting up tables and all that good stuff. And I mean, I was planning. I wasn't planning on doing any of that stuff. And then like Fred's like, I'm busy. You go and talk to these guys. So I went and talked to Jr. He pulled out his portfolio, and I'm looking. I'm like, hey, boy, this dude's stuff better than mine. I'm like, but I had to keep it professional. I'm like, yeah. I see what you did here, but I probably can do this and that.
Yeah, you can improve. You can
Yeah,
improve here, here, here.
kid. And like, which comic you do? Don't worry about what comic I do.
Yeah, yeah. So Jr is great, and so I think yeah, a lot of this was like Fred's initiatives, but and what he does for the company, and I'm really proud for what SatDam is able to achieve for giving opportunities to new upcoming creators and even ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one way of doing it. There are many ways of quote unquote breaking into the industry, but I think low key it's even easier now with the internet. So always take advantage of that. I think that could be a separate video on how best to use the internet to get yourself out there. If not this video, we could talk for hours about the stuff, right? But one of the things that touching back on deadlines with the book deal was once that thing hit, everything was kind of fast paced. Yeah. Like everything came real. Everything became real. It's like before it was our own deadlines, but now this is like a different situation. Your book kind of needs to be done 6 months before it actually is going to be released. So the book has to be finished like 6 months before. So that already kind of gives you, because there are a lot of people that are going to touch your book for this distribution wise that you're never even going to meet. That's going to make sure the books is in this store and that store and Barnes and Noble and Walmart and blah blah blah, and they're talking those agents and business people, making all these deals and making sure things happen. And so those are some of the things you can get for traditional publishing if they care about you. Sometimes there's so many stories for traditional publishing where it's a nightmare. So you kind of need to make sure that your publisher values you in that sense. And so your book has to be done, so it gives you an idea of what your deadline is going to be. And so for me, one of the benefits for some of us was a lot of the content was done, but we still needed to go back and tweak things. The things that we needed to prepare for them, like we needed the pages to be available in a way where there wasn't any text to accommodate for any changes, translations, things of that nature. Right, so the book needs to be exported in a certain way. I had to learn things about Clip Studio Paint that I didn't even know yet, or I didn't think I ever needed to know. But is valuable even now with some of the other stuff some of the big stuff we will announce later. But we needed to learn how to do that and restructure all the pages. And if there was stuff that you could remaster now, because now the book is going to be, because at the end of the day we're competing with everybody now. There's no longer like, some people can say we're indie, but in many ways we're kind of not at the same time, because you're going to be competing with whoever. Like Jay Hammer is like H, right? So let's say in Barnes and Noble, the book is going to be in the H. What's like a top series? Hunter.
You Hunter. There's so many different ones. Like, yeah, you're right.
So imagine somebody walking down the shelves and you got to, the covers mattered. Like even the covers need to be ready. They needed to be ready long before the design, which I love our design. But there's so much stuff. And me, Raymond, I'll ask you the paper, the dimensions that we then we're going to settle with. But we wanted to make sure that again it was industry standard, because it has to be. And you can't just say, oh, you're going to make your manga book be some weird thing because you're in your own head. But if you want to actually be part of the industry, there are some things that they're not going to make accommodations for you. If you want to fit in those shelves, the book has to be a certain size. The book has to be a certain amount of pages, because that might affect money. The book has to still be, you still need to make that decision of black and white or color, because if you pick one, then that's it. You know what I mean? But Raymond, do you remember any stuff about from a dimension standpoint and picking the paper and all of that kind of stuff?
I mean, the one thing that kind of stands out to me is like how important the spine is. That because the spine is what you're going to see, particularly if you're making manga. And I'm guilty of it, but I remember like always having these like dreams of grandeur of having like Dragon Ball, where you got the spine that's all one picture.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Everybody who does manga kind of has that dream of like, okay, I'm gonna have the spine be like a picture of something or whatever. But
Yeah,
like in reality, like chances are, when you have a bunch of books, there's only so much shelf space.
yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I took away from this whole deal is that there's only so much shelf space. Like if you're going to be in Barnes and Nobles in these different places, and you got to understand that the big guys want to take up most of it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
They're not going to they're not going away, and they have tons of volumes of these different series that are going to get their space. They're going to get their chunk, and
yeah.
you know what I mean.
And
So
yeah,
yeah,
it's also like most of the time I see that One Punch Man as well. It's usually the top series that are proven sellers.
right.
Because another thing with traditional publishing that is not with digital publishing is you can plan for chapter 47, 6 all you want.
All you want,
If volume one doesn't hit, you
forget
might be
about it.
done.
That might be it. That
That's
might be
it.
it. That might be all she wrote.
Yep.
That's
Totally.
it. So all that stuff about we talked about that's still important, regardless of what you're creating, of trying to
Yeah,
make sure you get their audio, the attention in a good way that still fits the narrative and it's a good story and you're consistent and all that kind of stuff. But then now it's higher stakes because now companies involved, money is being spent, all these things are happening. You can, you want to do this mumbo jumbo, blah blah blah, beginning, and if it doesn't hit in book one or book one doesn't, sometimes it might even hit, but if the sales aren't really there,
yeah,
that might be it.
that might be it. And
Right.
and it goes back to what Jay was talking about having a vision for your book. And I think it's really hard to have that kind of vision for it until you've like put you put your pages in. You've drawn, you've got one
You have
shots.
experience, yeah.
Yeah, you
Experience.
got experience because you just don't know, man. Like there's just so much you learn along the way that it's so hard to you just can't know it all like when you first get started. But once you do get to that point, and you kind of have a glimpse of like what it takes, and even videos like this can help where you kind of have an idea of what what these bookstores are looking for, stuff like that. You can actually start mapping out your stories and your comics with that in mind because it's
Yeah.
like, man, okay, if I only got one shot, let's say I only get one book, you know what I mean? I only get one volume. What can I do to make that volume like not only hit but make it satisfying so that if people buy this book, if this is the last one, at least they got a good experience out of it. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
So
like
go ahead.
to piggyback off of that, I mean, if that is the case where you're like, I only have one book, and you're like trying to figure out exactly what to name it, now you can go to the bookstore and say, okay, A's have Apple Black, they have Attack on Titan, and this and that. What about Z? Zatch Bell. I don't think anybody's talking about Zatch Bell. Maybe I should call it Z something. Like, I mean, it'll give you at least enough of an idea to say, okay, what section could I see myself in, and could I stand out there, like what's
Yeah.
in that particular genre as well. Like maybe there's a lot of, I don't know, romance novels under in for I don't know, whatever. But I mean, my point is that like if you can uh actualize all of that inside of your head, like just like completely visualize it, actualize what you can visualize it, and then you can make it happen for you. You can take this time right now to like plan it all out before you even put pen to paper. So
Yeah.
that's
So Jay,
definitely something.
what you're telling me is when I'm ready to do a Bullet Eater reboot, I need to name it Z Bullet Eater, and
It's
make
like
it
it's how it's German. It's how it's German now. MZ Bullet.
Z Bullet Eater, and it's gonna be romance.
Yeah,
Like,
it's gonna be romance because romance is selling like
hey,
cake right
hey,
now. So
might
I wouldn't bend too much for that at per se, but I think the like to name your stuff just for where it's going to end up in the shelf, because sometimes they could still find to go to the shelf and see your stuff and still not pick it, and then and every alphabet low key has a banger somewhere. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't bend too much about, but the thought process behind all of it is basically once you kind of see the insides, in and outs of a lot of the traditional publishing stuff, it can help. Like Raymond said, it can help you structure whatever you're doing better. And so for some people, if it is naming your stuff, then sure. But like, I know for me, it helped me like, oh, okay, remember we talked about this before. It's like long ago, I was thinking I was gonna do all these volumes. I was like, no. We're not doing that. We can't do that, right? I even have a mindset where Apple Black could end at like volume 17, 18, and then the rest of the story, which is kind of like post time skip stuff, I might even hire a new team, which is another thing, right? Where up until this point, I had just 2 books for the longest, right? And that was because I'm doing a bunch of other things, and then there's like personal stuff, and then there's social media and all the blah blah blah. But then because of these deadlines and knowing that inner working, it allowed me plan and go, okay, hold up. If these books are legitimately going to come out, I need a plan. Mm-hmm. And once that happened, I was like, okay, however this manga assistant stuff works, I need to figure it out. And sometimes you might have to start thinking, especially now, start thinking more as like a manga producer versus just an artist or a writer of like, okay, how can I make sure this is produced? Because a lot of times, even with movies, they might have some certain plans for the script and blah, 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 but they have a deadline and they have a budget and all those kind of things where the movie might not actually come out the way the director 100% wanted, or maybe something will happen on set and if something went wrong, it's like, okay, we're going to scrap this scene. Sometimes stuff happens, and low-key manga is not that different, even though the stakes are low because it's just drawing on paper, right? But in that sense, I have to be like, okay, I'm not drawing the backgrounds anymore. Somebody's going to have to do that. Maybe I'll make some tweaks to it if it's wrong. Okay, I'm not toning anymore. Someone's going to have to do that. But maybe, oh, shoot, it's not easy to find the perfect person to do it unless they're going to cost crazy amounts of money. Because again, which we'll talk about in advance, but it's coming out of the advance to fund these things some of the times. And we'll talk about the advance a little bit. But basically, it's like, okay, it's going to go here. It's stuff like you have to also be prepared for, stuff is not going to be perfect all the time if you want to live in this world, right? And so you have to be prepared to just kind of think like a producer and also see where you can come into play to make sure things hit their deadline. So seeing things from this traditional publishing standpoint allow me to sit down and go, okay, I need a plan. And over time, I figured it out. I got manga assistance in like volume 3, but the way it was working wasn't quite there. And then I made some tweaks to it, right? Because before I wanted to see if they can help me inking characters, but I was like, that was just not going to work, right? I was still spend so much time fixing their stuff that it was there was no point. And then I figured out, hey, I can skip the sketching phase and just jump straight into inks. Especially go look at Japanese manga. You look at Jujutsu Kaisen, you look at Chainsaw Man, and you can kind of first off, they don't do their backgrounds most of the time. Naruto, Bleach, all that, they don't do their backgrounds most of the time. They work in teams. They already have that mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea of one person doing it all, it's not really from spearheading the spirit of the story and all of that. Sure, maybe with the editor a little bit, but for the most part, they work in teams, just like in the West. It's just that the West maybe have more people with color and this and that and that, but it's a team and they have that producer mindset. So I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on drawing the characters so that it's easier for the style to be consistent. And then it's easier for a different group of people to draw backgrounds. And stylistically, it will just look the same. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I needed to train them to be able to do that. I needed to train them to tone like me. And then there's some stuff you're just going to give up. It's like, okay, I'm just not going to do it. And low-key, it's less stress on me. And the books still look good. So it worked out in the end. And that's an example.
Well, piggybacking off of what you said about advances, I mean, once you get the contract, it usually dictates, or at least says, okay, this is what your advance is going to be. I know we talked about this in I think one of our first episodes, but whatever your advance is, let's just say for the sake of, this conversation, it's $1,000. You have to actually sell enough money, like enough books to actually cover that advance before you get more money. Like that's what the royalties are. And a lot of people don't necessarily understand that. They think that, okay, I'm going to get this advance. And then after that, every book that gets sold, I'm going to get, money immediately off the bat. And then I'm going to, like Raymond said, run off into the sunset and be happy. Like that.
My Lambo.
Yeah.
Lambo.
and that's
I
just not
want
what happened. So like,
$1,000 Lambo.
My manga got my manga seat covers of my manga right here behind me.
Yeah, you
well,
saw
I
those
mean,
anime cars.
well,
Yeah,
what I was saying is, I think what you said was right on the money because I mean, if you're using some of that money for the advances to like pay your assistants to help you, I mean, you gotta like plan out all of that as well. Like I haven't had assistants to pay. Like how was that entire scenario for you? Like how did that work out? Like I mean, I know you just talked about like you giving them.
it is. It is literally. It is literally that straightforward. It's a bunch of, and we can touch on this as well. It's like a bunch of my assistants are kind of like work for hire kind of, and so you just pay them. It's commission,
Yeah. Okay.
basically just commissioning. I get my whatever I give to them, right, and I give them whatever is agreed. Again, because it's different roles, it's different uh, price points, and blah 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 blah.
So it's
And
like,
so
is it like per project or like did they
it
reach
is
out
per.
to you?
It is per. It is. It's. I based it based off. Some of it is like based off of how complex the task is as well, but it's per. It's just like per page, per this, per. You know what I mean? Some pages are more complex than others, so those will take a little bit more money out of me. And then some are like very simple. Some that if they're like super simple, I'll just do it myself real quick. I'll just do it myself real quick.
I feel that.
But some are like there's like I remember there's a page in volume 5 where no volume 4. Well, there's a page everywhere, but like in volume 4, some double spread page, and I remember like doing the storyboard for it, and I just remember, oh gosh, there's like a city down there. I was like, thank God I'm not drawing.
I'm not doing this.
Like I'm sketching it. I'm trying to make sure it's cool, right? So I'm like, okay, I want the cool stuff to be there. And normally, if it's only me, I'm like, gosh, the mental hurdle is like, okay, I have to mentally prepare myself to draw all these yada yada yada. But one of the assistants, I usually give him the backgrounds because he's really good at it, right? He even does some 3D stuff. So I remember doing it, and just the idea that, oh man, I don't have to worry about inking.
Just roast the
Just
bunny.
load up your mind. I
just started crying.
And it does remind me. I mean, the more you talk about it, it does remind me of like a movie producer. Where like
Exactly.
I can see them looking at a storyboard being like, "Oh man, this is gonna cost a penny from the FX
Yeah,
team."
yeah. So sometimes, and again, it's like the FX team. They know what FX team they're going to hire, what studio they're going to hire for the thing. So it's like sometimes I'm like sketching stuff, and I already know. Okay, this background, I know the exact assistants to give this to.
Right,
You know
that's
what I mean? And it's not always going to be perfect. Everything they do, even though I'm paying for it, but everything they do comes back to me, and I make tweaks. There's always something. I make like I tweak, right? And some like all of them, they're not always available. So there's sometimes I'll figure stuff out, or somebody who maybe they didn't sign up to be a background artist for something, but they're the cool thing. My assistants are great, so they're usually very available and wanting to help and stuff. So even if they're not that great at it, we'll have a meeting, and it's like I also like the fact that they get like a personal white manga tutorial freaking Google Meets to
Yeah.
kind of break it down. And then the good thing is in the beginning, none of them really like they'll get it, but then over time, they always it's just going to be better and better and better and better. So there's one, and again, I can't talk about the project because it's one of the newer project stuff that we've not announced yet. But he's doing something for me, and he's done it before, and I had to make tweaks to it. But he's done a different set just now, and I just remember going through it. I still had to make tweaks, but I had to make way less tweaks, and I was just like, just knowing that okay, that's off my table. That I don't have to worry about. I'm going to worry about that less and less and less. So even though it's not like a straightforward commission, because a lot of times you pay the person, they go make it, and that's it, right? They've done it, they do it right. There's sometimes I'll tell them that hey, fix this because you do have to because if you don't say that, then they'll never kind of learn it, right? But a lot of times I'll just take what they have, and then I'll go fix it, especially because the pay isn't like the most dramatic thing, right? There's no Lambos here, okay? But that's kind of how I work with the the manga assistants. Jay, you still there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Okay,
You said
I can edit it. Yeah,
I thought you were
yeah. It's I think by the end of it, it'll be fine. But basically, that's how I do it. So the advances is almost like musicians as well when they get some deals. Right, they get a chunk of money. It's kind of like a loan, and then they're paying for studio time, they're paying for whatever they want to do, and then they go make the project. Whether they've the deals are different too, right? It could be a deal where it's like 2 albums. It could get an advance for 2 books. You can and you some advances are like it could be $1,000. Some advances are $100,000. It depends on you as well and how much pool you have, right? The amount of money one person is going to get for an advance is not going to be the same for somebody else, and then the deal might be different. Maybe you could even argue a deal where you don't have to earn out, because earn out, that is the term. Earning out is when essentially you've been paid for the advance, you've been paid in advance, and then you don't get royalties until the publisher, distributor, whatever, have got this is a standard thing, have gotten their money back from the sales. And when they've gotten their money back from the sales, then you start to get royalties. That is earning out. But maybe you might have a deal where it's like, no, I want advance, and I don't care about the earn out. That means you have like massive pool. You're like the Goku of artists or something. I don't know, right? Every deal is kind of different, so you can demand certain things. It all depends.
And so,
But
let me a little bit more on the earnout. Talk about sell in and sell through.
sell in, just basic terms. Sell in is what after all the traditional people, publisher people, distributor people do their magic, right? They make their sausage, right? The how the sausage is made, and your book is in stores. They have to negotiate with these people like Barnes and Noble and Walmart and blah blah blah. They'll buy your stuff in bulk and then sell it, right? When they buy it, the store buying it, right? The major store buying it and deciding, oh, okay, we have different Barnes and Nobles all over the place, or different Walmarts all over the place. This place is going to get this amount, that place is going to get this amount, whatever. But the store buying it in the first place, that is sell in. Then the people buying it from the stores is sell through, right? And then there's also returns, right? Some people buy a book and then they're returning, and depending on your deal, that can affect royalties as well. So sometimes it's complicated. It's traditional publishing is much more complicated than self-publishing, especially if you have some print on demand thing. You're just sitting there, sitting pretty and cooking, right? But one of the perks is, if you sometimes it could be a perk where you're so successful at self-publishing that a lot of traditional publishers will start reaching out to you and they'll do all the work. But then one of the perks of that, despite whatever happens, is if you have enough pull, your advance could be wild. You know what I mean? You could get an advance for stuff that you've already made. Like you've already made the book. You've already made the stuff. So essentially they're just paying for the rights to do what they want with it.
Now,
But the book is already made. Like, say, and again, there's also an exclusivity period and ownership thing where with us we still own our stuff. That's one of the individual creators still own their work. Nobody else owns it for a period of time. And then I don't want to talk too much about the particulars of the deal per se, but these are some of the possibilities where our deal is very unique. We still own our stuff. The individual creators still own their stuff, right? Jay, who owns a hammer? Raymond, who owns Believer?
your boy.
Okay, thank you. And Joel Schumacher owns Apple Black, but that's a different. That's a different.
Animal.
That's a different topic. He wants to put nipples on Sano. We're talking about it. I don't want that, but we would figure it out. Okay, so
Well,
that's pretty much.
I'll say this too. I mean, a lot of it too. As far as the deal goes, I mean, it takes negotiation and planning because we were fortunate to have Fred on our side. Really, he's been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
He was able to structure a deal that, because at the end of the day, right, these publishers are, their goal is to get you published with their best self interest in mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're not going to screw themselves.
They want to make their money.
They want to make their money. They want to make as much money out of you as possible without not having to pay out a whole bunch of money to get you there. So like, so in that case, that's what made it unique, because we did have Fred and all, Fred doing all, a lot of the not a lot, pretty much all the
Pretty much
negotiation.
all of it. Pretty much
Yeah,
all of
pretty
it.
much all of it.
I mean, if there was something in place, like there was no rush, because if something were to happen, Fred would come back to you and like
Right.
tell you,
Yeah.
hey, this is what's happening. You know what I
This is what
mean?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not like he's doing anything. He's doing it with us in mind, and we are part of the the
Yeah,
deal.
I came up with this analogy. I told Fred a long time ago. I was like, you're kind of like the agent for everybody at Saturday AM. You're just like the
Oh,
manager.
right.
Kind of,
Right.
yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
I can imagine that being overwhelming if you're doing this, if you're going at this alone. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah,
all of a sudden you got these companies coming to you talking about this, that, and the third. You never maybe even had a deal before. You may you don't know anything about it, and you may just take a bad deal just because you don't have the experience to counter. Because
yeah,
it goes back to, like you guys were talking about before, is knowing how much you need. Knowing what you're. All right, okay. So how much does it cost me to make these books? Like, look at my time. How much does it cost me to make these pages that I can actually not necessarily make a living off of it, but how much can I legitimately make in order to make time to do this book and to do these different things?
yeah,
Do I need assistants? Do I got to pay them? You know what I mean? So you kind of getting your house in order so that you're ready to come to the table and talk about with a realistic number of what you need to make this project happen.
yeah.
So it comes back to those producing skills.
Yeah. And another thing I'll say again is part of why our deal was is very unique. Beyond Quarto, there were other deals that had nothing to even do with emails with me or anything like that, where we had other opportunities to have distribution with other companies, right? And a lot of people don't know that those companies were saying the same thing in what they wanted, and they were very specific with what they wanted. In fact, even I believe even Quarto echoed this, but we were able to negotiate and get what was necessary. But if there's certain, like, props to Fred, because the deal is also structured the way it is, because we wanted to give opportunities to everybody, not just a few, right? Because if we did what most of the potential distributors wanted, right, then only, like, everybody will still eat in a way, but in different ways. But it'll only be a few people really eating. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And we
Yeah.
structured because we believe in everybody. We believe in everybody's project and the potential, and wanted to really give people opportunities. We took certain L's in certain areas to accommodate for everybody. And that was pretty much Fred making sure that everybody played a role, and making sure we could design the books that we the way we did, because I think the books look great. Shout out to Joshua, you know, and like getting the help that we have with staff, and making sure that we spread it out, because a lot of distributors, like you said, they're looking out for them, and they're not just going to pick up some book because they want books that sell,
It's gonna
or
sell.
books that can sell, books that they have faith in, especially if they don't know you. They want proven winners, right? And so they don't just want everybody. Being able to structure it, especially with the power of what we were able to do over the years with Saturday AM, was able to get, and with Fred's know-how, was able to get us where we are. But there are certain sacrifices that were made in order to make this happen, right? And a lot of people don't know that, but I think it's just testament to how much we believe in the creators, especially Fred, believe in the creators and wanting to see them prosper. So there were deals that we turned down. There were, there's a lot that a lot of people don't know, but it is what it is. There's no point in even litigating that all the time as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty remarkable when you think about it, because I mean, we talked about this earlier, like how with the deadlines everything was like going really really quick, and to be honest, 2021 and 2022 were a blur. Like I barely remember them, but like from there to now, to have 33 books at least, like I mean, this was the 33rd book, and since then there have been at least three other ones that have dropped. So I mean, we have several books out around the world, in like Turkish.
Yeah, Turkish.
I mean, it's crazy, like to know that all that happens, and it's really like because of Fred. Like he made this all happen the way it did. So like props to him, like for sure, because he really did believe in like everybody. He didn't just want like what White was saying, just a few to get like these deals. He wanted everybody to have a bite at
A
the
shot.
apple. So
Yeah,
yeah.
a shot. Yeah.
You know what's kind of surreal though, man? Honestly, like just quick cool story. I had an interview last week with an art school or whatever, and I was like, you know what would be really cool? I need to show them. I want to show them how to draw diverse manga, the book that we one of our best sellers actually on Amazon. But anyway, I was like, man, I really would want to show them that book. Really just to kind of jazz myself up or whatever. And I was like, crap, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I was just like, you know what, crap, you know what? Let me just run to Barnes and Noble and get one real quick. And that's what I did. Just went right to
Yeah.
Barnes and Nobles. Do. Boom, there it is. Got it. And that was in the story. You know what I mean? Versus, back in the day, back when we first started doing this, you have to order it off Amazon because it wasn't in bookstores yet. So
Yeah, yeah,
now
yeah,
I can
yeah.
go in there, and if I want to, if I want to pick up the latest Apple Black, latest Hammer, just roll up in
Yeah.
there.
So yeah, it depends. Your deal. It depends on your deal and how much the publisher actually cares about you, and how much. One of the perks of traditional publishing is that they're supposed to have that networking. In some cases, they're supposed to help you promote, but as we know, they will help you promote. They will help you, put you in certain places, signings, all this stuff. But for the most part, you're still going to have to promote your stuff yourself, right? Unless they care about you so much, and then there's like a budget out, super budget allocated. But a lot of times, especially in this economy, you're going to have to get your hands dirty.
Well, I mean, even movie stars have to promote their own movie.
Yeah, yeah. But at least the argument some of them will make is that some of those movie stars is inbuilt in their deal that, hey,
True.
you must promote it, like you need to show up here, you need to do with books. It's still the same, kind of, right? It's still kind of the same, but maybe it's not always going to be in the fine print. But if you don't do all that stuff, then maybe you might not get another book. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, but
Yeah.
all this stuff is connected though, because I mean, you turn around, you do get a book deal, and then you're crappy to work with, or you're not doing promotion like you want to. That takes into consideration too. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
like, well,
yes. If you're like, if it's not easy to work with you, then good chance. Like sometimes, and that happens. That happens everywhere, Japan, whatever. Like sometimes, maybe they're paying to work with. The work could be great,
hmm
but then stuff will still get canceled or for whatever reason. Like getting canceled is not always because it's not selling. Sometimes it could be, you know,
yeah,
not anything.
it's not a fit. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's not a good fit or something like that. So, traditional publishing has its perks in that sense, where they're depending on who you are and your deal, there could be like a massive budget for you, and then they're networking to get you in those stores, and they have a relationship with those stores already, so they can be like, hey, you know what, we believe in this, and okay, get this many amount, get this many books, get this whatever, right? And then that store will buy it. You still need to sell those so that they can keep their credibility, because if not, then the store can return the books. And if you don't take the books, if you don't take them back, then you're potentially tarnishing that relationship with that store. Maybe you might not be in that store anymore. Like nobody wants to mess around with, say, a Walmart or a Target because you need them,
hmm
right? So you also want to sell an amount to them that you believe will be sold. Like the sell through is going to come through. Like it's going to be a good sell through, not just good sell in. And so those are a lot of the perks, but pros and cons, because everything is just kind of complicated, right? Because you would think, a lot of people would think, oh, it's in the store, that's that. But then you'd be surprised. It's like sometimes if you don't sell, the store will return the books to you.
Sometimes stores can be a curse in disguise, man. Like you
Yeah.
get it in there.
And now you just have a bunch of books.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't let the credit roll. Like, I mean, the real work begins when it's in the store, because you want to push that thing to not only hit your royalty or hit your what you call it again, your
Your earn out to earn out.
earn out. You want to hit your earn out. Again, you want to make sure your reputation out there. You want to be that guy that got in the bookstore but not selling anything. All of it's like Fred always says, it's a Ouroboros. It's all connected. It's all connected, all of it. So You know.
Yeah. I think that those are things you got to worry about, and I guess those are some of the perks that come in with like traditional deals, along with still figuring out the store, still being worried about, hey, you might get canceled. And canceled sometimes, again, it depends on your deal. You might have a deal where it's like, okay, we're not going to publish any more of your books, but hey, you kind of get back all the exclusivity stuff after a couple years, and then you can do whatever. If we're not going to do your volume 2 or your 3 or whatever, but after a certain amount of years, based on, it depends on your deal, right? It could be tomorrow, it could be maybe anytime you want, right? But whenever that threshold is met, it's like, hey, you know what? We're done publishing you, but you have your stuff now. Go make your book, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this goes back to what Raymond was saying earlier. You don't know if it's going to be like super successful or not, which is why you probably shouldn't plan out, chapter 47 or 60 or anything. You should plan out like a actually satisfying volume 1. Because like I think I told this to I have a Patreon. I talk to people, and I'm mentoring this one guy, and I was telling him about like this his volume 1. We were like trying to structure it, and I was saying what you don't want is to be doing a signing, and you have volume 1 through 10 or whatever, and all of them are connected, and you're out of volume 1 and 5. And now if you're trying to sell volume 10, they're going to be like, well, I want to start from the first one. Like,
It
how are
doesn't
you
make
going to
sense.
like pitch that to them? This is why, if you do decide to do something like that, try to have every volume be like a satisfying volume. Like, I always bring up Harry Potter as a good example, because for the most part, I mean, even though they were connected, they were basically every school year or something in that regard. Like, you got to
Yeah.
have that one adventure from beginning to end. Yes, if you read everything, it probably would make a little bit more sense, but you still got the general consensus
Yeah,
as you read
yeah,
that one volume. So, I mean, I really think that if you're thinking about your contract ending, and if you're creating something, what you really need to focus on is, hey, how can I make this as entertaining as possible? Because if I don't get a volume 2, I still want this to be satisfying enough for people to like remember me when I come out with another.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
definitely something to keep in mind.
It's
yeah. And
like a
it
movie.
doesn't. Go ahead, Ray.
No, I was just gonna say it's like a movie. You know what I mean? How crazy would it be if movies didn't work the way they did? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
Spider Verse is a good one. You know,
yeah.
like that first one, money in the bank. If we
What
never
movie?
got Spider Verse,
Okay, yeah,
Morales,
Definitely.
I mean, if we didn't get any more Spider Man after that first one, everybody could have ate and been great and been good to go. It would have went down as a classic. We got another one. Did a pretty good job. But that first one was money. I mean,
yeah.
Well, I mean,
if you
with,
Spider Man
with
again,
that example, number 2 was left on a cliffhanger. It was still awesome,
Number two.
but now
Number
we're
two was left in the cliffhanger.
big cliffhanger,
I
huge cliffhanger.
think
yeah.
Yeah, I think the book, whatever the book is, because not every book needs to end like a standalone, one-shotty way, right? You can't end on a cliffhanger, kind of like part 2. But
Yeah,
I think some of those things take those risks because of maybe the IP is strong. I mean, that's Spider-Man. You know what I mean? That's Harry Potter. Those are like huge, right? If Harry Potter wasn't doing great, I bet you they wouldn't have split that last movie into 2. Or something like that, right? So it just, I think the point is, you still have it's all art, you can still kind of do what you want, but the point is each book should just be awesome.
but dang, that's there you go. I mean,
Mic
just
drop.
make
Each
it.
book just needs to be on, because I remember with these volumes, right? And again, because there was a page, because I remember with self-publishing, your books could be with however page count you want, right? You could be whatever. So I remember my volume 1 ended up being closer to like 300 pages, and then the volume 2 was like 200 pages in that first format. When we're doing this, we had more control over it. But this one, especially with traditional publishing and more rules and more, things going in a certain way, I even had to reformat certain pages to this new. Even the size of the book was, remember, it was taller, it was bigger, right? We're doing our own thing. But with these books, I then had to restructure stuff as well, right? Because not all of it was going to fit that page count limit for the books, right? The maximum. So stuff had to be moved around, and each book, I still needed to make sure when I move it around, each book needs to be as as best as it can be, right? From the content that I've already made, right? But then once we got to the point of like, oh, this is I've already made this stuff. Once, and that was mostly volume 1 and 2, right? Even the current volume 1 and 2. But once we got into volume 3, 4, 5, I had a little bit more freedom because now I know the insides of how this is going to work, and it reflects even in their reviews that each volume was just better than the last, right? But I just did my best to make sure that the volumes that we did have were okay. This is the best I can do, especially with the deadline. Kind of like a producer. If I had more time with volume 1, then maybe I would have done this or done that, whatever. But sometimes finishing matters. Having a finished product matters, and you just make it the best you can possibly make it. And if it's not going to be good, then maybe you can go back. It's like, hey, this deadline is not going to work, or maybe stuff like that, right? But each volume, I try to make each volume as awesome as I can, and nice perk, gift, and a curse in a way. But each volume has been better than the last. And surprise, 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 from what I've gotten from volume 5, a lot of people say it's the best one, which is a little bit of a concern for me because the 4th volume kind of ended an arc. So a lot of like can't answers were questions, a lot of fights, a lot of stuff went down. And when 4 came out, people said that was the best one yet. So with 5, you're starting a new arc. You're not, I was like, okay, I'm still writing it to make sure this book by itself, it's part of an arc where the whole arc will be like 3 volumes. But this book by itself, it still needs to have that Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, beginning, middle, end feel. And that's how I feel about the arc itself, where even though this one book, I'm trying my best to give it that feel, I'm going to give those 3 books will kind of feel like that as well. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And when I look at the story overall, the whole story, in portions, like this is still Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. I'm kind of breaking it in that way. There's like 3-act structure is not the only structure. There's like 4. Again, it's art. You can do whatever you can really do whatever you want. But that's just how I do it. And I think at the end of the day, whatever you do with the books, the point is it needs to be awesome because it might be the last book you ever.
Might be the last
You know
one.
what I'm saying?
Each
So
book each book earns you the right to do the next one. You know what I mean?
pretty much, especially in traditional publishing, things can go left field. And even when they do like the serialization, that's especially look at Japan, like stuff just get canceled. Just get canceled.
Yep.
You're not selling enough, you're done.
Wrap it up, cuz wrap it up. That's what they say.
Yeah.
That's what.
So I think we covered pretty much. Are we missing anything?
I think we're missing. Everybody out here needs to buy Saturday War. Oh, good. Amazing. Very, very cool series. Well, I mean, one book, obviously, right now, but all of our series come together to save the universe. So definitely go check this out.
And we did our best to we also did our best to make sure this is like, it could continue, obviously, but we did our best to like, this is it. Yeah, and this is honestly, this book actually encapsulates that whole manga producer vibe that I'm talking about. Because there's a lot about this book where it's just like, okay, this is not working, that's not working. Let's do the best we can. Okay, this scene, let's move. You know what I mean? For the most part, it's Fred that handled all the writing. But like when we were doing during that editing phase of just getting stuff done, get it done. And I think that's a very producer mentality, especially in like Hollywood stuff.
Like reshoots, like we like
reshoots. Yeah.
So Eddie Fry, the artist, man, he really killed.
Yeah, he came through as well. He did a great job, and he helped out with the quote unquote reshoots.
Man, he was amazing, man. He was amazing. I mean, because this is the first time we ever did anything like this, and shoot, it's really, I mean, nobody else is doing anything like this, man. So like, he didn't really have a quote unquote framework, and he took everything like a champ because it was.
Yeah. And we ourselves learned from the experience because now if we do this book again, we know exactly what to do.
Yeah. Yes.
We know what needs to happen. If not, I'm not. Look, the sleepless nights. I'm not even doing this if certain things are not in place.
Well, me and White were up some nights, man. I saw him transform into dark manga. He started saying stuff like, "White is gonna be okay, man."
I'll be drawing. I was like, this.
I'm like, white. But the good news is they white be like, there is no good news.
There is no good.
Dark manga want no
You
dark
know,
manga.
you see, there's a lot, as you know, like you can talk about your Rick and Morty and stuff like that, right? But I'm sure there's a bunch of you did Lemonade Code. There's stuff happening outside. So when Saturday Wars was going through a reshoot, I was doing like 5 things at the same time, and the deadlines were all coming. You know, when it's like, oh, I could be like free. I have nothing to do. Raymond is like, hey, I need help with this, and I'm like, oh yeah, done. All at the same time, like 5 projects. Just go boom, 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 and then all of a sudden, Saturday Wars needs this. I'm like, ah,
I think I
this
have
is too
4
much.
minutes. Let me do that.
This is
right
too
now.
much.
Yeah.
Right. But at the end of the day, obviously, it wasn't just me and Raymond. Like everybody came through, low key.
They did.
Everybody came through. Zay,
Frank
Uh,
Frank Simmons,
and,
Aki,
Yeah, yep.
yeah,
Austin, Red too had to do some stuff. Everybody came through. You know, I think maybe that'll be a different podcast where we talk about the behind the scenes of Saturday Wars. And
that'd be pretty cool.
when you look at what we're able to produce, I think I'm pretty proud of what we're.
Yeah, we gotta get Eddie on here, man. We gotta get Eddie on here.
Yeah, Eddie's cool. Eddie's very cool.
Good
Yeah,
people.
maybe we
But
can do another Austin situation where we just have a guest. That'd be really cool. So
yeah, Austin was great for the editor episode as well. So if you guys have been enjoying this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave questions if you have any questions. Sometimes these questions could help frame future episodes and stuff like that. And eventually, not yet, but eventually, we're hoping to get to a point where these videos will be live and just be as time goes on, the more love you guys show it, the higher the quality can be, the more support of what we're doing. Buy the books, buy all our books.
and click
So
that bell as well, so that way whenever we do premiere the next episode, you'll be there and you can chat with everybody that's going to be watching it as well.
pretty much. So that's all we have, guys, for Saturday FM making manga. Unless you guys have any last words.
Raymond?
Nothing. Yeah, nah, man. Yeah, it's fun as usual. Love getting together with you guys, and we'll do it again next week.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks again for watching these. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to doing more of these. So definitely keep on coming. Tell your friends, share it. Help us out.
Yeah, appreciate it again. Go get Saturday Wars and a lot of the projects that we're talking about that we can't talk about as well. We'll stay tuned for those announcements. A lot. Like I said, I turned into dark manga because there's like so many projects. Like if I didn't have manga assistance, I would have been cooked. So thank you guys for watching. Swipe Manga, Saturday FM, Jay Odin, Raymond Brown, and we're out.
Deuces.